I am going to show you some applications for the GeoGloWS Streamflow Services hydrological model, but I will give you before a background about the GeoGloWS project and what is the science behind all of the work we have done with the GeoGloWS model. So the GeoGloWS initiative objective is to leverage partnerships and resources and data to deliver accurate, open, and accessible hydrological predictions on a global scale, playing a vital role in addressing complex water resource management challenges and developing capacities inside the partners, but also inside the communities. Some key organizations in this project are NASA, NOAA, ICMWF, BYU, Aquaveo, ESRI, USAID, the WMO, the World Bank, and Amazon Web Services, but also the NASA resources through the NASA Survey Project, and the multiple satellites, the GeoGloWS global model, and the NASA water resources have been really important in the development of this initiative. This initiative intends to connect people with global water information. And because of that, a global hydrological model was developed. So that model uses the numerical weather prediction forecast from the ECMWF integrated forecast system, the medium range deterministic forecast, and the medium and extended range ensemble forecast to produce hydrological forecast in every single stream of the model coverage. But also, that model uses the ERA5 reanalysis to produce a retrospective simulation in the same domain of the model. So the land surface model that is used by the GeoGloWS model is the hydrology tile ECMWF scheme for surface exchange over land HTSL that is used to compute the land surface response to the atmospheric forcing and also produce the operational ensemble forecast and retrospective simulation for surface and subsurface runoff. So the different products we have the high resolution and the 51 low resolution members and runoff forecast and the retrospective simulation based on the ERA5 analysis. We have different spatial and temporal resolutions. Then we need, but the extreme network of the GeoGloWS model has the same resolution everywhere for every single service. So we have a weighting area mapping method where we calculate for every single watershed what's the proportional area of each one of the pixels around it to calculate what's the runoff volume inside that watershed. And after that, using the Muskingum method with the rapid algorithm, we route the water through the stream, calculating a historical simulation for every single stream that is deterministic, that has discharge data from 1979 to the present, more than 40 years in the GeoGloWS version 1. But for the version 2, we go back to 1940. That means more than 84 years. And also we have a forecast that is a stochastic 52 predictions, 51 low resolution, 51 high resolution, that has an horizon of 15 days and that is updated daily. So the forecast keeps the same that we have from version 1 to version 2, but we change the spatial resolution and coverage. The version 1 of the model uses the streams that based on the hydrosheds DTM. It was about 1 million of streams, and we have 13 computational watershed groups. You can notice here in the model coverage, we didn't cover the Russia, most of Russia, the Nordic countries, or the north part of Canada, including Alaska in the US. But with the version 2, we increase our coverage. Still some areas like in Russia are not covered, and same in Canada. But also we increase the amount of streams, not only because we are covering new areas, but also because we increase the spatial resolution of the model from 1 million to 7 million of streams. And now, because this is a bigger computational problem, instead of having 13 regions, we have 125 computational watershed groups. This model is communicated through an API, so we can access the results of the model by having basically the COM ID or the reach ID, and we can get the retrospective simulation, the return periods of that retrospective simulation, and the forecast. For the version 2, we still keep the possibility of using an API, but there are a small change. So instead of API and go to the function immediately, so we have like a small change on the URL that access the simulation results. One of the most common questions once we show this model to the people is how accurate it is. So we collected the biggest amount of observed hydrological discharge values globally by using the NASA Severe projects where we worked on. So talking to the National Hydrological Services, trainings that we do from the GEOGloWS model side, and also using the Global Runoff Data Center database. And we compare the historical observed data with the retrospective simulation, and we can see that the model, in general, we can say that we have like good results. However, we can see that there are some problems in the Andes mountains, watershed, the east coast of Brazil, the center part of the US, mostly areas in Africa, the east coast of Spain. We didn't have like good results in some areas. But there are places where the model has a good performance, like Europe, East and West Coast in the USA, the Amazon watershed, Japan, New Zealand. So mostly developed areas or not human intervened areas. And we found that the model generally replicates the shape of the hydrograph, but it doesn't have the correct magnitude. It's like mostly a bias problem. So we developed this bias correction method where that uses the simulated and observed flow duration curve. So every single simulated value that we map that value to the simulated flow duration curve, and we calculate the non-exceedance probability for that. And with that non-exceedance probability, we enter into the observed duration curve and calculate what's the discharge value that have the same non-exceedance probability that our observed value. And we replace our original simulated value by the observed value with the same non-exceedance probability. In that way, we change our original simulation from this orange line to this red one, that if you notice, it has exactly the same shape, but now it's in the same order of magnitude as our observed data. By doing that to the whole simulated time series in the whole network station, we can see the big improvement that we are having in our model results. And that includes a really big improvement in the Andes mountains, also in Africa. Still, we keep some problems, especially in dry areas like the east coast of Spain, the Middle East, in this case Israel, and also the central area of the United States. But most of the areas we have like a really good improvement. And these model results are encouraging that we can continue exploring these options to have a calibrated model results in the different countries just by combining the GeoGloWS model results with the local observed data. In similar way, we were asked for some places where they don't have rating curve and they don't have discharge values, but they have water level values. And even though this cannot be considered a bias correction method because we are not correcting the simulated volume, but eventually considering that the discharge values came from water level values, so we are able to construct a water level duration curve. We can get from every single simulated value the non-exceedance probability, and with that non-exceedance probability enter into the water level duration curve, and getting the water level value that has the same non-exceedance probability to the simulated value. And replacing that value, we can get now a water level simulation that has similar way, the same shape that the original simulation, and that now is in water level units and is in the same order of magnitude that our observed values. And we apply that to a really big network that we get globally. We can see here, we have 3 different problems that we didn't have for discharge data. So the first one is collecting water level data even though it should be more common, is less viable than the discharge data. There's nothing like the global runoff data center to collect the water level gauge data around the world. And also, the other problem is that the results you can see are not as good as the ones we get for discharge. And here the problem is that the water level value is not considered like a final variable to share, but an intermediate step. So the two principal problems that we have is that the water levels are relative to a zero that can change over the time. So if a flood occurs and the station is gone, when a new station is set up again, it is possible that the zero level is not the same, so we will have different ranges in the water level measurements. Then, when we apply like a water level duration curve, it's not possible to have a really good fit. And the second problem is about the presence of a lot of spikes in the data. So it's not, these spikes are not corrected for the water level data set that is not validated or as verified as discharge data set. So these two problems make the model, this bias correction extension to water level doesn't work properly. And yeah, the other problem is the coverage or the ability to get water level data is not that common as the discharge data. The good news is that, for example, projects like the HydroWeb project are providing currently water level values for more than 24,000 stations around the world, but this is satellite data. And that data solves two of the problems that we have. I mean, most of the problems that we have with ground-based stations. First one, the water level values are not relative, now are absolute, so they are in meters above the sea level. The zero is the sea level, and that won't change over time. The second one is there are no errors with the spikes because the water level values are computed, not properly measurement, and there's no chance to a typing error, for example. And the global coverage that was not viable originally with the ground-based stations. However, it introduced new problems that the frequency of the measurements and the really short time that the measurements have been taken because the satellite projects are kind of new. However, when we apply that methodology to this data set, we can get even better results than the ones that we get for digital data. And this is really promising because now we can have even a global system producing water level warnings by using this data set. And imagine the HydroWeb project only have 24,000 virtual stations. If we consider projects like the SWAT project, that we have more than 200,000 stations around the world, we can replicate the same methodology and have even more better results than the ones that we have with this case. So every single global model to be used in the local scales need to satisfy these four challenges. The first one is the management of big data, having a civil infrastructure and a workflow that allows to download a big data set, to run the model, and to store the outcomes of the model, but without having these type of problems. You can see that we speak about that. This GEOGloWS model is doing that, and so it satisfies this one. The model needs to be communicated through web applications or web services. In this case, I show you that there is an API. We also have web applications, but I didn't speak about them. So the model also satisfies that part. And I also speak about the verification, the accuracy of the model that does not be, the model does not be, it's not necessary to be perfect, but it needs to be good enough to trust in the results. So I show you how we evaluate the performance and how we improve the model by applying bias correction method. Now I want to focus on this area, how to assimilate, how to adopt the technology in the different places in the world. So we created partnerships, trainings, and collaboration. So in the frame of the Servir Amazonia project, we signed memorandum of understanding with 3 National Hydrological Service in the Amazonia region, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, and with the disaster management institution in Brazil. We had several training sessions about the use of the GeoGloWS model, the capabilities, the services, and according to the needs in each country. We did in-person visits to these countries to discuss directly with them, with the users, what they want of this service, how they want the results to be displayed, and what capabilities they see that can be customized. And all of these activities together ends up in the customization of 3 different services in each one of these countries. So we have the HydroWeaver Brazil, that the HydroWeaver application shows the original GeoGloWS results, but here in Brazil, they wanted to combine with the real-time hydrological station network. And they display the warnings produced by GeoGloWS in a different way, and they try to combine one of the services, the monitoring service, but also the global model results. In that, also we developed the historical validation tool. This application uses the bias correction method. We are only able to provide model results in the places where we have historical discharge data, and the warnings are produced only in those places. But using the corrected results of the model, we have this application, and also we developed the national water level forecast application that instead of using the discharge data, we are using the water level data and the same methodology to produce the warnings on the places where we have gauging station with historical water level data. We do the same for Colombia. The main difference is that in Colombia, they use a statistic called the 7Q10 for define if there are a low-level warning, not only flood warnings, but the low-level warnings. And they extend that to all of the applications. In Ecuador, for example, they only produce the drought warnings in the HydroWeaver from original GeoGloWS, and they also combine that with the flash flood guidance system, so they can have both the 2 different hydrological services, and they are able to display the warnings from one and the other. And if the warnings agree, they can make like better decisions by combining these services together. They also developed the historical validation tool for the historical stream flow and discharge data and the national water level forecast. And similar in Peru, in Peru, we didn't have that many customizations, so we have the original warnings from the GeoGloWS model, the historical validation tool, and the national water level forecast by using the observed discharge data and the observed water level data. So by providing this global service adapted for local use, the decision makers can access the necessary hydrologic information to solve local water resources problems. That's the main objective that service have, that goes from space to village. And examples I want to show today is that in Ecuador, a rural Ecuadorian community led by women were able to design an aqueduct to deliver water to irrigate important farmlands by using this GeoGloWS model. And in Malawi, the GeoGloWS helped to extend forecasts of the community-based flood early warning system from hours to days, saving lives and millions of dollars in each flooding season. And I want to show the key elements to have success in this type of projects, according to the experience that I got in the Servir Amazonia project. So first of all, it is important that the services align with the institutional mandate of mission of the local institution. The local institution must see clear benefits in solving their specific challenges by using the developed services. The local institution needs to understand the scientific basis and practical implication of the services and promote the service use within the institution. Having a local consultant to advocate for and promote the services within the local institution and across relevant and related institutions that can use this type of services. The process of customization should be done through direct engagement with users in the local institutions, and the customization of the services needs to meet specific local conditions. It is needed for the local institution to own the developed services, focusing on the capacity building to manage, maintain, and produce further development of the services. And finally, it is important to make the services openly accessible to maximize the use and the impact that we can have. In this element, the BYU is working on a social impact project to even go further with this type of projects. So if you are interested in know more about the GeoGloWS version 2 model that is going to be launched soon, you can join to the Google group that is available in the link. So thank you so much for your attention. And also, if you are open to share data, you want to improve the result for your country, I am also collecting the biggest amount of observed data possible to continue with this. Thank you for your attention.